All right, welcome back. If you're just tuning in, you're listening to the Mark Moss Show. Of course, we're talking about the decentralized revolution, right? We talk about it each and every week, and we're running through some of the latest breaking news headlines to show you just how far things are progressing, how fast they're going. And, you know, it's sort of like sometimes you have like this chicken or the egg situation where like, was this created as a solution to that problem, or is this causing the devolution of the problem? And so, you know, when I think about Bitcoin specifically, I think about it in terms of that. And, you know, for the last 6-7 years that I've been publicly talking about it, specifically in the United States, and maybe, you know, Western world, Canada, Europe, et cetera, I get asked all the time, like, why? Why do we need something like Bitcoin? Why do we need that? Why do we need decentralized technologies and things like that? When you talk to people in third world countries or very harsh authoritarian regimes, they don't ask those questions. So if you live in Turkey or Venezuela or Argentina or Lebanon or any of these countries where you're seeing double to triple digit inflation, you don't have to be told why you should need another currency. They already know. They're trying to get out of that currency as fast as they can, which is why those countries impose like capital controls to force them in. If you live in North Korea or China where your transactions are censored and you can only buy what they tell you can buy, you don't have to be told why you need a currency that nobody can control. You already want that. Only if you live in the United States or Canada or Western Europe do you ask a question like that. And you would only ask that question if you have absolutely no idea what the heck the rest of the world is like, because you've never traveled and you've never paid attention. So you're in New York City in Manhattan sipping a $20 cocktail. What do we need different money for? Our money works fine. Well, it works fine for you. For the majority of the world, it doesn't. Okay? But it's almost like the governments in the Western world now want to tell us why we need something like Bitcoin. I hosted a Twitter Spaces call with presidential candidate RFK Jr. this week, and he was asked on the call, what was it that brought you to take another look at Bitcoin? And he said it was the Canadian trucker protest. When I saw Canadians practicing their constitutional rights to peaceful, law-abiding protest, peaceful protest, he said, out there singing songs and picking up trash and feeding the poor and doing all these things, and they were demonized and their money, their bank accounts were shut down, I knew at that moment we needed something else. And so he, as well as millions of other people, were brought to this realization like, oh, shoot, we do need a different money that the governments can't control. So maybe that wasn't your point, but don't worry. The government's going to do their best to get you warmed up very quickly. And of course, we see more of that happening today. Just this week, we saw two very prominent people known globally who found front and center why they need a different money. One of which is Nigel Farage. You might know Nigel Farage. He served in the UK Parliament. He was instrumental in the Brexit situation, which a lot of people in the UK have different opinions of Nigel Farage. Depending on, which side of the political aisle you're on. I can tell you, not that I'm an expert in Brexit or what happened there. However, it's clearly the UK wanting to be part of the EU, which is a globalist, and then the UK wanting to leave the EU, which would be then decentralization. And so I believe that Brexit and Donald Trump being elected were signposts of this decentralized revolution I talk about. That being said, I did get a chance to meet Nigel Farage and talk to him quite a bit. We spoke at the same conference, Nomad Capitalist Live in Mexico City last year. And I got to hang out with Nigel. We went outside, he had a cigarette, and we sat and chatted for about 30, 40 minutes. And I can tell you, he's pretty based. He understands the threat of globalism very well. He understands the threat of the global banking cartel. He understands the threat of this entire globalist agenda, and he has fought against that. So it should come as no surprise that, of course, they don't like him. And they want to use every tool in their ability to get rid of him, including censoring him on the internet, smearing him, and destroying his character. And the latest one is that he has now been unbanked. What does that mean? That means he is kicked out of the banking system. That means he was notified that his accounts will all be closed without warning. Your accounts are closed, and you can't have a bank account anymore. What do you do if you can't have a bank account? Well, exactly. You don't do a lot. And so, he's been talking about this, and a lot of people are like, Bitcoin, Bitcoin, Bitcoin. But this is happening, and so now the whole world, and even if you don't like Nigel Farage, even if you do not like him, you still see what happened to him, and you go, shoot, if they can do it to him, they can probably do it to me. We also had another one, another globally recognized figure, a personal friend of mine as well. I'm talking about Dr. Joseph Mercola. Dr. Joseph Mercola is one of the most famous, naturopathic, holistic doctors in the world. He's been creating content forever, helping millions and millions of people through their health problems. And during the COVID pandemic, he became enemy number one of the COVID industrial complex because he talked about ways that you could build up your immune system, ways that you could, alleviate the symptoms and things like that, which they didn't want. Imagine that. Imagine them not wanting people to be healthy. Interesting. He became enemy number one. Like I said, he's a personal friend of mine. He's spoken at, I have my own conferences called the Market Disruptors Live. He spoke at both of those. And not only has he became enemy number one, he was named by CNN as the number one source of disinformation. So now he's spreading lies and spreading hate and all these things. And now they've come after him. So he also got debanked. As a matter of fact, he received notice from JP Morgan Chase that all his accounts were going to be closed. And not just all his accounts, but everybody that works for him and even the people that work for them's kids. So we're not just, it's like those movies, where it's like, I'm going to get revenge on you. I'm going to kill you and everybody you know and love, right? And then the hero's like, whoa, okay, fine, I'll do whatever you say. That's what they did to Mercola. They didn't just go kill his bank account. They killed the bank account for other people he knew and loved. So people watching this are like, shoot, this is getting pretty crazy. This isn't just North Korea here. This isn't just China. This is the UK. This is America, where there's supposed to be a rule of law. What happened to the rule of law? Well, the rule of law has been thrown in the toilet paper, turned into toilet paper. In the Nazi regime in Germany, they did something similar. They passed a number of laws that restricted the rights of a certain class of people they didn't like, the Jews. They passed all kinds. These laws stripped Jews of their citizenships and prohibited them from marrying non-Jews. And so they took a group of people they didn't want. They created laws in a way to go after them, to persecute them, to strip them of their citizenship, and even prevent them from marrying. What's so different about what's going on today? The UK, the EU Parliament doesn't like Nigel Farage talking about how the EU is corrupt and needs to be shut down. The COVID industrial complex doesn't like Joseph Mercola talking about ways that you can take vitamin D to build up your own natural immunity. And so they smear you. They censor you first. Remember, he was named number one disinformation. They smear you first, or they censor you first, then they smear you, discredit you, and then they just assassinate you. In this case, debanked. And so, like I said, at a point where the developed world mostly wants to know, why do we need something like Bitcoin? It's coming front and center. And we're really starting to see that there's very, very, very blatant two-tier system. At the same time, this week we've seen Hunter Biden try to get this plea deal. He's facing some serious allegations that could be even punishable by death. I mean, we're talking treason here. And they tried to pass this sweetheart deal where they said, hey, he'll plead guilty to this. And the judge said, wait a minute, does this give him immunity of any potential future things we bring against him? And the prosecutor said, yeah. And the judge says, has this ever been done before? And the prosecutor said, no. And the judge says, like, no deal. But you can see this dual arm of the law, and it's bringing front and center why we need something like Bitcoin.